Hello and welcome to another edition of Paydirt Remote. I'm Dominic Piper. Today I'm joined from across the Indian Ocean by Errol Smart, Managing Director of Orion Minerals. Errol, thanks for joining us.
Hi Dom, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. And I'm glad to see you've got up so early over there in South Africa to join us. Errol, it's been a busy week for you. You've released an updated BFS for your Prieska base metals project over there in the Northern Cape in South Africa. The first question is, why was an update to the original BFS necessary?
Dom, we put out the original BFS last June, and we had a bunch of sort of studies underway still at the time. So the project was good. It was always great. But we knew that there was a lot more to come. We knew that we could improve the metallurgical circuit. We could improve the way that we did the water management on the site. We knew that we could fiddle with the scheduling of the mine so that we could actually mine some of the better ore earlier. And obviously for cash flow purposes, that's important, particularly when you're doing bankable studies. We knew we could add another 2 years of production quite easily. And it's amazing that flick of a switch in people's minds when you go from a 9.5-year project to an 11.5-year project. There's a big step that changes there. Although we knew that we'd done the original study with our high element of ESG, environmental, social, and governance embedded in it, we probably hadn't highlighted it enough. And as we started speaking to investors, a lot of them were saying to us, good grief, but why don't you say more about this? Because that supports it with our investors. So fund managers nowadays are driven by ESG. Let's face it, a lot of the money comes with tags. Is people will not invest in things that don't have decent ESG. Operating in an impoverished part of Africa, you are immediately in the limelight. So we just took a proactive view from day one. We see it as an investment in our total business because it pays a return.
I'm sure you've been doing the rounds this week. What has investor reaction been like to those highlight numbers in the updated BFS?
Investor reaction in this market, it's tough. It's obviously very tough. What we have seen, though, is the institutional investors. The phone's been running off the hook, and the data room is a very busy place at the moment. So the institutional investors, and this is what it was about, the announcement that we put out was an institutional announcement. It's not a retail investor announcement. Those are exactly the numbers that they want to see because you've got the multiples on investment.
On that project side of things, do you go into finance discussions now?
Yeah, we've engaged Macquarie to deal with us. We had a bunch of strategic investors that we had lined up and that we were in discussions with. And now we're re-engaging with those because some of these strategic investors, they're that big. You're speaking about blue chip players. They end up dictating how the banking looks at the end, rather than work on the banking first and then go find the equity. We've said, well, listen, let's take on the strategic guys that tend to open the right doors on the banking on the right terms.
There's a rather short pipeline of base metal development projects in the world. Where does Prieska sit within that pipeline? Is it one of the more desirable projects for development?
Yeah, I think it is because of the growth opportunity. It is the first step in a district. So it's a district scale play, and the ore body itself remains open. 4 years ago, I told you it's going to be at least 10 years, and at the moment, I believe it'll be another 10 years. There's been a whole lot of mines that have shut down, and they're not going to be incentivized to open up at current copper prices, never mind any price below this. There's 33 analysts that agree with me that by 2024, the copper price is going to be responding very positively, and so will zinc. And that's exactly what we want to do, is construct now while construction costs are extremely low, and then harvest the asset in 3 years' time. So we're a low-cost producer, 47% operating margins. There's very few high-margin base metal projects like that around the world, and that's what puts us ahead of everyone else.
Obviously, permitting is a challenge in any jurisdiction, and there is certain issues in South Africa, perceptions of issues in South Africa. Are you comfortable with the permitting process there, and how far advanced are you with permitting?
We are comfortable. We've been very proactive on it from the time that we started in South Africa. We got our mining rights for the Ripley, which is about 80% of the project. We got that right granted last year. The second portion of the ore body is on a mining right called Vardacube, which is now at the final stages going to grant. So we got the environmental approval granted in January, and there was an announcement by the Minister of Mines yesterday that the DMRE are actually going to accelerate the granting of licenses because they see it as a critical redevelopment and financial investment opportunity for South Africa.
Errol, you've been a vocal commentator on the South African mining sector, and particularly the junior mining sector, and a vocal promoter for the sector there. What are your thoughts on the current situation there? Should investors be concerned looking at investments within the country?
I think South Africa is in a better space than what it's been for a long time. There's an incredibly good relationship with him between the mining industry and the minister. There's a lot of arm wrestle and a lot of punching and fighting still, but we can talk straight to the man. The South African mining industry has turned itself around as well. We are becoming masters of our own destiny, and the Minerals Council has played a huge role in that. But the way that we behave, and again, this whole ESG thing, is important. And we do have better health and safety around our mines than what is generally available anywhere in the cities and in the rural areas. So we've become a bit of a pillar. It's easy to criticize the South African government, and very often they deserve every bit of criticism, and the minister knows that we come out fighting when it's necessary. But that kind of engagement really gives me comfort.
There's not a whole lot of exploration going on in the country, but obviously Orion's got a big ground package over there, and you've got IGO here very interested in that ground. What are your plans for exploration?
Obviously, the financiers that are looking at investing in the mine want to make sure that the money that you raise goes into the mine. But equally, we've got a bunch of people that are saying to us, listen, we'd really like to put money into the exploration because we see the opportunity in the exploration upside of the thing, and we don't want it to stand still. So we are busy speaking to a number of parties, and there may be some kind of arrangement that we get to so that we can keep both running in parallel and in tandem.
Errol, that's very encouraging to hear, particularly from a South African point of view, but certainly from an Orion point of view. Errol, thanks very much for your time today. It's great to hear that the BFS has progressed to a point of being updated and sharp and ready for financing. And hopefully in the next 12 months, we'll see some real movement on that for Orion. Good luck.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.